Hey everyone, welcome back to Kind of Evolved, a podcast about living naturally. My name is Drew Bonito and I am your host. And don't worry, you don't have to know how to pronounce my last name. Today I'm going to be doing something a little different. A lot different, actually. This was an idea that Trish had, my girlfriend and the co-owner of our company, Naked Ape. So I was telling her I was having trouble figuring out what to talk about on the podcast, and she had what I think is a great idea. She said, I think it's a great idea for a couple reasons. One, because I think I can give an interesting perspective on things. And two, this requires very little research ahead of time on my part. And research is so boring to me. So Trish had the suggestion, why don't I keep you all up to date on current environmental news? I can look up articles, share them with you, and then share my opinion on them too, because she knows I love to share my opinion on everything environmental in the world. So that's what we're gonna do. Right now, I am sitting in front of my computer, and I have a couple of articles pulled up that are environmental news related, and I'm gonna read them. I've skimmed them, I haven't read them yet. I'm gonna read them to you all, and then I'm going to share my opinion on them. Let's see what we think. Let's see what we think about the latest. This is something that I'm hoping to do every couple weeks, actually. I think this is going to be a fun thing. I can keep you all updated. I can have someone else to blame if the information's not good, because it's not my fault, it's these people. And then I got to share my opinion on environmental stuff, all things I like to do. So let's do it. I'm going to start with a good one. This is from BBC. It is titled Why I'm Feeling Hopeful About the Environment in 2021 by Tom Heap. Now, I'm going to share where the article's from and the title and who wrote it, but I'm not going to just read this word for word or anything. I'm going to be skimming. This is interesting. It says robots driving a new wave of wind power. Bladebug is a rectangular robot which crawls over wind turbine blades. Imagine a suitcase that sprouted 6 legs with suction cup feet. Having humans on site to look after marine turbines is risky and expensive, making up 40% of their overall lifetime cost. Wow, 40%. But drones will be able to carry Bladebug to the offshore wind farm before it crawls over the tower and blades using sensors to detect damage or anything reducing its efficiency or lifespan. Wow. So this is a robot that would be carried by robots up to the top of these massive wind turbines. It can even fill and polish small defects itself. So it's not even just checking for problems. It can actually fix some of them. The International Energy Agency says that offshore wind could deliver 18 times our current electricity demand for the whole world. 18 times what we need. And innovations like this will make it even more affordable and achievable. The Bladebug, that's hard to say. The Bladebug will undergo commercial trials this year and plans to reach market in 2022. Wow. Okay, so this is talking about the giant wind turbines. We don't have any of those around here. I've never even seen one in person. They look incredible. It's about a robot that can actually assess damage and repair some minor damage on the top of these giant wind turbines and make sure they're running as efficiently as they can. I know people don't like robots. I know robots make people nervous because of the thought of job loss, but it's a tricky thing, especially in this case, in my opinion, because they're saying 40% of the overall lifetime cost of these wind turbines is hiring people to go up and maintain them, which is also not a safe job, it's saying, which I can understand. Have you seen videos of people climbing on the top of those and like recording footage with their phone? These things are so tall. I get anxiety just watching those videos. So I'm excited about the prospect of this. I would love to see more wind energy. I hate that some people would lose their jobs, but maybe they can figure out a way to, someone's going to have to fly the drones, and I assume someone's going to have to, I'm guessing this robot's not going to just work on its own. So maybe they can take those people and they can make them the people that control these robots. And these would also be people that already have expertise in the industry. So if this is a robot, like I said, I assume this robot's not just doing everything by itself. So they would need someone to monitor through a camera, I'm guessing, what the robot sees and keep an eye out for anything the robot misses. Just also keep an eye on everything. So maybe that is a solution where no one has to lose their job and it gets safer and more efficient. So that'd be cool. I'm excited about this. This seems like a win to me, which makes sense because it is an article titled Why I'm Feeling Hopeful About the Environment in 2021. I haven't researched wind turbines too much, but I'm fascinated by them. It just seems like such a good solution to everything, especially the ones that go near the ocean. Now, as someone who's a huge animal lover, I understand the fear some people have about birds getting hurt by these. And unfortunately, there are a handful of birds that die, I believe, each year from them. But it's such a tiny percentage. Now, it doesn't change anything. That's a tiny percentage. I'm against any bird dying from these. But when you compare it to other energy sources, it's a much lower death rate than the rest. And it's just a numbers game. It has to be. So you got to look at what causes the least amount of deaths. And from what I've read, this is among some of the lowest animal deaths. I would love to see 0. I wonder if there's a way they could paint the blades to make them stand out more. If there's got to be something. I think if the people that create these work together with wildlife specialists, they could find a solution to minimize it as much as possible. I would love to see that happen. All right, this next part says Super Solar, the International Energy Agency. That's what they said for the other thing too. International Energy Agency. I've never heard of them. I'm gonna have to look them up. It's talking about solar panels. It says solar panels currently only convert around 1/5 of the sun's energy that falls onto them into electricity. So only 1/5 of the potential is actually turned into electricity. Sunlight is made up of the spectrum you see in a rainbow and silicon found in nearly all solar panels is best at converting the red part into electricity. But UK-based company Oxford PV is combining silicone. I don't know if I think silicone ends with an E. This ends with an N. Silicon with a material called, oh boy, oh no, whatever. It starts with a P and it's got a V and a K. It's a long word. A semiconductor mineral with a crystal structure of titanium calcium oxide, which turns the blue wavelengths into electrical energy. This chemical sandwich can increase the panel's efficiency to 30 to 40%. I think I heard about this. I think this was one of the upcoming articles I was also going to mention, something I have on my phone versus the computer. Let me check. It is. All right, so this other article is from sciencealert.com. David Neild. It says scientists just set a new world record in solar cell efficiency. So that's very exciting. So let me see what else this article has to add. Researchers have now hit an efficiency of 29.15% in there's that word again, perovskite. I think that's it. Perovskite silicon tandem solar cell category, which is just one of several different types of cells. For this type of panel, the long-term target of more than 30% is now tantalizingly within reach. The latest lab tests edge ahead of the maximum 28% efficiency that these cells have managed up to this point. Okay, so this is very cool. I didn't realize, I don't really understand how solar panels work. I understand, of course, sun hits it, it's turned into electricity. I didn't realize we were only getting 1/5 of that because of technological limitations. So they're boosting this from 1/5, which is 20%, up to, according to the BBC's website, 30 to 40%. So that's potentially doubling it from the 20 to 40. That's awesome. I'm very excited about wind energy and solar energy. I mean, those are clearly the ones we've heard about the most for the longest period of time. Those are really the main ones. And it just seems so crazy to me that we have technology to take sunlight and turn it into electricity and take wind and turn it into electricity, things that are constantly happening all around the world most of the time. We have the ability to take that and power things, and then you pair it with things like electric cars, and suddenly the wind is taking us places. The last time that happened was when we had sailboats. Like, it's amazing. I love it. I want to see this brought up to a much bigger scale. I would love for them to make it more affordable. Solar panels are not cheap. I would love to see smaller scale options too. It'd be great if there was a way to just, maybe there is a way, but not that I've seen. I've looked into just getting like 1 or 2 solar panels to see if that was an option. Like if you could just power, like let's say a refrigerator with solar panels or something like that. Or if you could have one outlet that was powered by solar panels along those lines. That doesn't really seem to be the case. I understand you have to have a battery that gets charged, of course. Like it's not coming directly through the solar panel directly to an electronic. But if there was a way that they could do smaller scale things where it doesn't feel like it's an everything or nothing. Because right now it seems like it's an everything or nothing. You're either spending 10, 20 grand, whatever it costs to make half your home, all of your home solar powered, or you're just not doing it at all. It would be really cool if we could find some sort of middle ground or a way that you could get started with it. Like maybe you start with like 2 solar panels, but it's set up so that you can keep expanding and expanding and expanding the same way people put additions onto their home or upgrade parts in their car or their computer or whatever it is, so that it can be a gradual thing where we don't need a lump sum of money to start, just a smaller amount to begin with. And of course, I would love to see the US government get on board with helping people make this happen for the sake of the environment. But I don't spend a lot of time thinking about that because these last couple of years, I've really stopped focusing on trying to get the government to help us out with this. I'm starting to feel like it's really going to be in our hands to make this happen. All right, moving on to the next article. This is another one from BBC. Plastic waste found by archaeologists at Pembrokeshire Hill Fort. This sounds weird because I don't think they had plastic back then. I'm looking at the pictures. This is clearly a very old place. It was not what archaeologists at an ancient Welsh hill fort expected to find, a mountain of plastic. Academics uncovered more than 2,000 items at the Castell Hennels. I didn't think about how stupid I was going to look and sound trying to read all of this when Trish suggested this idea. Oh, these were not ancient artifacts. They were discarded food wrappers and bottle tops from old school lunches. University of Liverpool researchers said future archaeologists may now well refer to our modern times as the plastic age. Ugh. I hate that, and it's so accurate. The discoveries were made by a team led by Harold Midham, and their findings published in the academic journal Antiquity. The researchers had originally set out to examine the reconstructed Iron Age village at Castell Hennels. I don't know if that's how you say it. I'm doing my best, people. Which had been used as an educational resource for the last 30 years. Geez, they got a whole bunch of pictures of everything they found. Straws, plastic forks, glasses, Godzilla? Wait, hold on, let me clarify. They did not find Godzilla. I'm looking at something with Godzilla on it, like the late 90s Godzilla. So, field trips are awesome. Love field trips. Loved field trips as a kid. I think they're a great way to learn. I never did good sitting still in class. I learned very little while sitting still, looking at a book, and just listening to someone talk. So I'm all for field trips. I'm all for learning about human history. It sounds like we need some more classes about environmental things because, yeah, I guess the kids, I don't know what age these kids were. I'm sure this wasn't malicious, of course. But this just goes to show how much more we need to educate people on this, especially children. I mean, I would hope parents would tell their kids not to litter. I mean, this is in the UK too, where I just I don't know why, I always assume people are just better at doing things in the UK just because I'm more surrounded by US news and I see how bad things can get here. My brain just says people have it more figured out in the rest of the world. I'm sure that's not always true. Sometimes it is, for sure. Moving on to a weird website that most of you probably haven't even heard of. I'm on IGN now, which I believe stands for International Gaming Network. This is actually a video game website, a gaming website that I was researching stuff on for something else I'm working on. But they have occasional news stories that they find interesting, including one that I read, and I was like, well, I'm going to have to talk about that. Speaking of littering, let's talk about space littering, as in litter in space. So the article headline is "A giant claw is heading into orbit to clean up space junk." The ESA is planning to launch its first active debris removal mission in 2025. First of all, a giant claw, that sounds crazy. Second of all, how have we already reached the point where we're littering outer space so bad that we have to go clean it up? Jeez, we need to get it together. Get it together, people. The ESA, European Space Agency, wants to send a massive claw into orbit to clean up space junk and steer any debris back into the Earth's atmosphere where it would be burned up. I've heard about the whole concept of purposely sending debris back into the atmosphere so it'll burn up. It sounds like a good solution, like if it just disappears, but I know like if you burn plastic like in a fire, those fumes go into the atmosphere. Is this burning up high enough in the atmosphere that it just goes into space and space is so big that it doesn't matter? Or are we still sending those fumes into our atmosphere from whatever burns up in the process? No one ever talks about that, and I'm curious. The agency has officially signed a contract with Swiss startup company ClearSpace SA to launch the first active debris removal mission known as ClearSpace 1, which will aim to dispatch a claw into space by 2025 to rendezvous, capture, and bring down for re-entry a Vespa payload adapter that was left in orbit after the second flight of Vega back in 2013. Oh, geez. This is in quotes. In almost 60 years of space activities, more than 5,550 launches have resulted in some 42,000 tracked objects in orbit, of which about 23,000 remain in space and are regularly tracked. There's 23,000 pieces of junk in space because of us humans. That's unacceptable. Geez, the ESA signed a 86 million euro contract to purchase the service, which could be used to remove further debris in the future. Well, this is just a bizarre everything. Junk in space. If we're gonna, we're doing a good enough job of junking up the Earth. Maybe let's leave space out of it. Love the idea. It's bizarre to me. I wish they had a picture or something. So I'm fascinated by the wording, a giant claw. But I mean, it sounds cool. Let's get that junk back to us. Let's get that junk recycled if we can, destroyed, and let's try to, in the future, not leave junk in space. I was just talking about children leaving forks and how we need plastic forks and how we need to work on that. Now we're talking about actual scientists and astronauts leaving junk all over the place. I know they've been educated on everything. What's their excuse? Moving on to another article from IGN that I just saw that I'm fascinated by. It's not really... this one's kind of pushing it with the theme of this episode, but I just have to talk about it because it's also talking about potential space junk, but it's even crazier. Space object that passed by Earth was likely from aliens, says Harvard professor. Says the object flew by Earth in 2017 going 196,000 miles per hour. Is that fast in space? I don't know. It sounds super fast, but I have no reference point. This Harvard professor says that he believes that this could be space debris from aliens. So aliens could potentially be littering too. And also there may be aliens. I guess that's more exciting than the littering part. But I mean, come on. I expected more from aliens. At first people thought, well, it must be a rock, just like asteroids or comets that we've seen before within the solar system. But as they got more data on it, it looks very weird, he said to CBS News. We don't know because we didn't collect enough data, enough evidence. He goes on to say that he's not happy with the way that scientists handled the situation, that they didn't look into it enough, and now it's too late to look into it more. But he says it seems like it was going too fast for, I guess, what it is or the size it was. He said the object doesn't look like a comet, but behaved like something with, quote, an extra push. NASA said in 2018 that it was the first object ever seen in our solar system that is known to have originated elsewhere, but stated that the origin of the object was unknown. I'm gonna be freaking pissed if we find out there are aliens that exist, though, and they litter just like us. Moving on to an article from The Guardian titled, Organic Meat Production is Just as Bad for the Climate, Study Finds. Now, as someone who has looked into this extensively over many years into the meat industry, dairy industry, all of these things, I read that. I know a lot of people will be surprised to hear that, and a lot of people have never heard about this before. So I don't want you to think this is directed at you or anything. We all have to learn things. We all learn things at different times. But I read that headline and I thought, well, duh. Just because I know enough about it. But I'll read a little bit of this article. So this article is by Damian Carrington, the environment editor for theguardian.com. The cost of the climate damage caused by organic meat production is just as high as that of conventionally farmed meat, according to research. The analysis estimated the greenhouse gas emissions resulting from different foods and calculated how much their prices would need to rise to cover the harm they cause by fueling the climate emergency. That's a good word for it, emergency. Let's start calling it that. Instead of climate change, global warming, a climate emergency. I like that. For beef and lamb, organic and conventional production resulted in similar climate costs, the study found. Organic chicken was slightly worse for the climate, and organic pork slightly better than their conventional counterparts. Conventional livestock's emissions come from their manure and, for cows and sheep, by burping methane. The grain they are fed can also result in high emissions, especially if it's associated with deforestation, such as in South America. That's a huge thing. They're clearing the rainforest down there to make room for cows. It's a complete mess. And when they're not making room for cows, they're making room to grow massive amounts of soy and other grains to feed to cows. Organic livestock are not fed imported fodder and are often grass-fed, but this means they produce less meat and grow more slowly, therefore spending longer emitting greenhouse gases before slaughter, the researchers said. Plants grown organically have half the climate costs of conventional produce, as they do not rely on chemical fertilizers, but all plants have far lower emissions than animal products. So bottom line, no matter how you do it, meat is bad for the environment. But this is very interesting to hear. I didn't know, that plants grown organically have half the climate cost of conventional produce. That's huge. Half? I'm going to have to start looking into more organic stuff. I didn't realize it had that big of a difference. I genuinely didn't. That is very interesting to learn. So not only do non-organic plants have, to quote The Guardian, far lower emissions than animal products, but organic plants have half of that. That's crazy. That's exciting, actually. I'm going to look into getting more organic fruits and veggies. I'm glad this happened while I was podcasting. I genuinely did not know that statistic, and that's very exciting to me. That's very cool. All right, I feel like that's a good place to stop because those are the only articles I had up, and I'm hungry and I want to go get dinner. Why not be honest with you? I think that's also a good test run for this whole looking at environmental news and sharing it with all of you. Please let me know what you think. If you're on YouTube, I would love it if you leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts on everything. If you're just listening to the podcast on one of the podcast platforms, I haven't quite figured out the best way to communicate with all of you. You could just listen to it in audio form and then head over to YouTube and comment if you want. But other than that, I'll figure something else out in the future. I hope you all have an awesome day. I think that was a lot of hopeful and exciting environmental news. I'm really happy to hear about this stuff. It's making me feel optimistic. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling real good. Anyway, I gotta go. I am starving. I'm gonna go eat some plants. Please subscribe if you haven't, and I hope to see you on the next one. Thank you for listening to Kind of Evolved, a podcast about living naturally.